Thank you. So Mohammed was talking about React and reactivity. So I'm going to talk about React Server Components, which I think is a new era for React and React applications. By the way, I'm Jafar Rezaei. Before we start, I would like to start with definitions to be aligned. So we have CSR, SSR, and RST. So what is CSR? I think all of us know what is CSR. It's just like simplest way of doing React applications and like other frameworks as well. It's cheaper, and it's just returning a empty HTML with a script tag, which is going to load everything for us. And it has some problems. So we have, on the other side, we have SSR, which kind of solves the problems. So we have this problem solved, but we have some issues. Server-side rendering has server costs. And also on the other hand, we have the same JS bundle size coming to our client application. So we are not solving JS problem. At this time, we see the React team coming to us saying something new, exciting. So we have React Server Components. And this was for 3 years ago. Yeah. So what is React Server Component? It's kind of same React component, but in server. I will come back to that kind of. So this demonstration shows us two different bundles which we used on our Nodes app. One of them is using React Server Component, and the other one is not using React Server Components. We can see that there are lots of libraries are not going to be on our client side. That's why we can use React Server Component and forget about the bundle size that the components are bringing to our application. So I think we already know the answer for this question. Why React Server Components? JavaScript was a problem, and we're trying to solve this problem, all of us. I mean Qwik, I mean Astro, everyone. But in my opinion, JavaScript is a solution. So Node.js is not the solution. I'm not the fan of that kind of mindset. So yeah, if we want to compare React server-side rendering with React Server Components, we can say server-side rendering gives our application first load from server, but we can benefit from server on React Server Components with our navigation. And also, React Server Component is going to remove the bundle size, which we are going to use on server. So we are not going to ship it to our client. And also, it has other benefits as well, like our servers can be have less load, and it simplifies the load sequence. And keep in mind, both of these solutions are using SPA. It's not MPA. So we are at the state of single-page application. So React Server Component is kind of doing partial SSR for us. And if you ask, can we use server-side rendering beside React Server Components? The answer is yes. Next.js 13 is already doing this. If we back in time, do you remember we had this PHP, and we have PHP and Ruby, and the mindset that they were following. They were doing this request response model, which we try to load something, and the server loads something and give us the HTML. So we are some kind of trying to do this, but React Server Component has some differences. So what's the differences? In React Server Components, the client state remain. So if we change something on our client and load something from server, our client state will remain the same. It's not going to be terminated. It takes modularity one step further. So we can have some NPM packets doing our server-side work as well, and it's just like a module. And we are going to use same components. So we can have our logic in one component and use it on both server and client. That's great. And it's BFF by default. not best friend forever, but backend for frontend. So it's just similar for the old paradigms. It has some differences. We will see this component tree from now on. It's kind of future. So we have these server components and client components in our component tree, which kind of reminds me the presentational and container components that we had in 2015, which we have again in 2023. So in React Server components are shared by default. So we can have a component, use it in both backend and our frontend. Yes, I'm talking about backend. So what we have in React Server components, I mean in React. So there is a new directive called use client. We can use it, which is going to take our component tree from that part to be client-side component and work as a client component. We have async components. We have React use hook, which I think you already know that. It's kind of a new hook, which you can use to do some async stuff and remove use effect and use state. And also we have this use import server only, which is there to prevent us from shipping server-only components and server-only code to our client. And it's a package, because we are using import. And if we take a look to this package, it's a simple one. It has only 3 files, one empty, one index, and one package.json. And empty is empty. It's really empty. You can see it's 0. So if we use it in our server, it's going to do nothing. But if we use it in our client, it's going to give us error. So in this kind of way, we are going to prevent our server codes from shipping to our client. So this is, and this, if you take a look at this exports in package.json, it has 2 different ways. So at the server, it's just exporting empty, but at the client, it's exporting index. So if you export it in the client, I mean, use it in the client, it's going to give you some error and prevent you from doing that. Can I try React Server components? Yes, you can. But you need to configure bundler. You need to configure runtime and router. Kind of reminds me the old React challenges with Webpack and with Babel and everything. But if you rearrange your question, how easily I can try React Server components, I can say you can use React Next.js 13 app directory, and you can use WakuWork. And simple RSC and bound by Oven. Shout out to Jared Sumner for implementing this. And these 2 items at the top of the list. And by the way, I already implemented all of them in this link. You can scan it and have all of them implemented in using React Server component. And those top items, React, WakuWork, and Next.js 13, are the main competitors. Maybe you haven't heard about WakuWork. After wrestling with React Server components, I just compared Next.js with WakuWork. So Next.js is SSR first. So it means our first load is server-side rendered. But WakuWork, for now, it's just CSR. In Next.js, you are forced to import your server components at the root of your page. So you have to import it and pass it by prop. But in the WakuWork, you can import it wherever you want. There is a function called serve, and you can say, OK, serve this function, serve this component, and it will be available as a server component. Both of them has route-based RSC, which means if you use some server component in some route, it will be that route who is responsible for this server component. I will explain this. Maybe it's confusing. And in the WakuWork, we have a server function, somehow similar to whatever Mohammed mentioned about server functions, which you can define some function, JavaScript function, and call it in your front-end like application. It will be just work. Like RPC, but it's not RPC. So this is Next.js based RSC. You can see I'm changing the routes, and the routes themselves, they are giving something like virtual DOM, which is a JSON format, and it's rendering in the application. And also the client-side state, you can see it remains 8 clicks, it remains there. We have Waku work, which is working like this. If you see, like, I'm adding new states to our application, I'm changing the color to pink, and it's loading a new state from our server, which is, again, a JSX, and my state remains same. So I have some process on my server, and I'm doing my application is working fine. And this is the server function. Hello, IOCow, just Coven of Wisdom. So it's Coven of Wisdom, do not make a mistake. Yeah, it's now here I'm calling some function from my front-end application, which is kind of similar to API call, but you have this code in my GitHub if you take a look. It's just calling some function in front-end, and you can feel it's like a REST API, but I'm just calling some function. It's just giving me something like REST API. So it's not RPC, it just looks like RPC. If you want to pass props from server-side component to client-side rendering, client-side component, it should be serializable. So you can't pass class functions and stuff. So it's backend for front-end, or you can say backend in front-end. Yes, the line between backend and front-end is going to be removed, maybe soon or later, I don't know. So React is a full stack library framework or meta framework or whatever you can name it. It's full stack. It can be used for developing whole of our application without any need to backend and other stuff. You might say it's complicated. I kind of agree, but the idea is simple. The implementation looks complicated. Kind of reminds me the hooks. So everyone was telling me, yeah, React hooks is complicated, but we are killing ourselves with hooks now. Should I use React Server component everywhere? No. There are some logics, and this is like a screenshot from Next.js documentation. There are some good places that you can use, but it's I'm going to run out of time. That's why I'm not going to deeply talk about it. Yes, it's similar to other approaches. It's similar to Remix, but you can have as many as loaders as you want in your component tree. It's similar to Astro, but navigating between pages, it's not going to destroy your state. It's going to keep your state. And maybe other solutions. But I believe all of the frameworks and libraries are going to have same goal and same aim, and they are going into the same direction. So all of them will have same functionality after 2 or 3 years, believe me. If you want to know more about React Server components, there are like lots of documentation. I use these links. You can use them if you want to know more about React Server components. And that was it. And yeah, I'm Jafar Rezaei, by the way.